This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
But I don't think there's any reason to talk about it. You know what I mean? I don't know that it does anything good for our team. It doesn't do anything good in the opponents and the preparations of things. So I've always kind of said that from the get-go. I don't know that last year we announced a starter. I don't know that it was much of a question. I don't think the year before we announced a starter. Again, I don't know if it was much of a question. So for us, obviously you got to have a plan and you got to move forward with it. But there's no reason for us really to kind of announce things.
It's Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell yesterday in his pre-game presser. I think you expected he wouldn't name the starting quarterback. He says he knows who it is. Arkansas right now, Jalen Canelan said they're preparing for both quarterbacks. Maybe you'll see both of them. Who knows? Grant Hall joining us here on Halftime, usual Wednesday guest. Grant, good to have you on today. Do you think Arkansas is going to face two quarterbacks, or do you think Cincinnati is going to stick with one?
I think they're going to start Ben Bryant. He's the fifth-year guy. I would just think he would go with experience, and then he's got what I guess the other guy was a Mr. Ohio, probably a run-pass guy, more Evan Prater. And, depending on how the game goes, you might see him. But I think Bryant would be the guy, wouldn't you?
I guess. I mean, he knows the program well enough, even though he transferred away and came right back. I keep hearing, though, he's more of a pocket passer. And, Ritter could get out and run a little bit, so maybe that's the direction that the Cincinnati offense had been going in. And Evan Prater, I think, is that kind of quarterback. So, I mean, that's really just a product of who I am, Grant. I can look at a situation and look at it both ways. So I'm seeing it both ways.
The remarkable thing is I read today that I guess the team has known since August 20th or something like that. How in the world do you keep a secret like that long? I mean, the time was, I go back to when practices were open, and now even though they're closed for the most part, word gets out, but somehow it hasn't, I guess.
Football is the most secretive of the sports, isn't it? I mean, I've spent a lot of my life around baseball and basketball teams. They can be a little bit secretive about some things. Then there's some coaches that are just like, you know what, I'm an open book. I think the Arkansas head coaches in women's basketball, I think Mike Neighbors is an open book. I think Dave Van Horn gives plenty of information. Sam Pittman gives information too, but he knows how to sit on things sometimes when he needs to. There is no sport as secretive as football.
Yeah, and I thought it was really funny that Luke Fickell told that story about they left a call sheet or something at a Burger King. You read about it. This was before the Sugar Bowl in 2010 when Ohio State beat Arkansas 31-26. Ryan Mallett threw an interception with 58 seconds left, but they had that. Remember, there was that scoop and score opportunity. The Arkansas had the game right there in its hands, really. But Fickell, what he remembered was that they were down to one cornerback. And so they, on the interception, I guess they dropped an end in coverage or something. And I remember looking from the press, Mallett never saw the guy, that the intercept. And by the way, his Whitehall team won by 3 points last week. He's coaching there now and doing a pretty good job in high school football coaching.
Yeah, I heard Fickell talking about, what was it, a graduate assistant or something that left a playbook at a Burger King or something like that.
Yeah, and some of those things are notoriously planted, and he said he didn't think that was the case this time. But, you talk about coaches being open books. The late Bill Connors, who was the sports editor of the Tulsa World for a long time, told me one time that Barry Switzer was notorious for he would talk to the other team's coach, maybe see him out somewhere the night before. And, how you guys going to cover this guy? And just, well, we're going to do this. And of course, Oklahoma was so good back then; it didn't much matter if the other coach knew their plays or not.
I don't get the Arkansas playbook, nor should I get it, but I did Henderson State football for 7 years. Coach Maxfield gave me a playbook, at least a couple of those years until he saw that I carried that thing in my trunk. And I guess I wasn't treating the playbook with its proper due.
Well, if you NFL, there was a time when NFL players, if they lost the playbook, it was a big fine. Maybe a $2,000 fine, which for a rookie back then wasn't a very good thing to have happen.
One area that I know it's been brought up in the press conferences. I don't think we've talked about it very much on this show, is that each of the past 2 years in the opening game, there's been a punt block from the opponent. So it's like, we'll say, it's going to be a physical game. Are you ready to see who the quarterbacks are? And, who's quarterbacking for Cincinnati? This and that for Arkansas. We haven't talked about the idea that don't get a punt block, because this Cincinnati team historically has thrived on big plays just like that. I mean, they force a ton of turnovers defensively and routinely make big plays on special teams. And that's an area where, look, I think Arkansas took a step forward in special teams last year, but I didn't think that in the first half against Rice last season.
Yeah, and they've got some competition going this year. I mean, you got Reed Bauer, who seems like he's back for his 9th year, and the Australian punter who, who knows what they're going to do there. I guess a little bit of mystery along those lines. One thing that intrigues me about this game, Phil, is that Cincinnati has 2 receivers that run 4.29, Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott. So, and I know there's been a lot of talk about losing 9 players to the NFL, but they've got all 5 offensive linemen returning. So, Arkansas is favored by 6.5, but there's a lot. I think there's a lot for Pittman and company to be concerned about.
One thing that they didn't have to worry about very much last year was losing the turnover battle. I mean, you only had 4 interceptions thrown by KJ, and it seemed that there were, some of the wide receiver passes were more interceptable than anything that KJ threw, and the team was pretty good at holding on to the football. But when you hear Sam Pittman talk, like, again, you're just never quite sure which way the ball is going to bounce, or if a tip pass may end up getting intercepted by a greedy secondary. I mean, all these things that we can talk about. Arkansas deep in the backfield, and offensive line is veteran, and they've played together for all these years, and all of that. Cincinnati's coming after the ball. They're going to try to, and look, every team tries to create turnovers. Some are better than others. Cincinnati historically has been one of the best in the country at doing just that.
Yeah, and a lot of times in big games, Phil, you can look at that turnover count at the end, and if one team has 3, the other one has 2, probably the team with the fewer turnovers won most of the time. It's intriguing. I think it's going to be, obviously, it was the first time since 81 or something that Arkansas has played a ranked team in the opener. Up here in Fayetteville, fans are excited, talking about plans for Saturday, with way more than a usual opener.
Mm. Now, Grant, one thing when it comes to games like this, and when you look at resumes, especially now that we're in the playoff era, let's say Cincinnati does come out and they get the win. Would this be viewed in a lot of people's mind as a bad loss for Arkansas to start the season?
Yeah, I think at this point, it would be a shock to a lot of fans' system. You look at I was looking at the schedule yesterday, and there's that 3-game stretch where you got 3 straight road games, and one of those is Brigham Young. And that's the game that, to me, is very problematic among several in the schedule. But yeah, if people are kind of, if they're counting out 8, 9 wins or whatever it is, I think this is probably one of the ones they're counting. So you go back to the drawing board and figure it out.
Grant, I do want to get your opinion on the golf stuff that's going on right now. As we've had Cameron Smith, Harold Varner III, they've gone over to live. What is your opinion on the direction that professional golf is going, and also just this apparently new kind of live thing that PGA is going to do with Rory and Tiger backing it, and kind of have these fan-friendly type of events? What are your thoughts about the whole situation?
Well, I looked at the list the other day of the live guys, and I think they've won 12 of the last 24 majors. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a formidable group there, and you're right. I mean, the PGA Tour has done things already to maybe not copy, but get ahead of, like this Monday night thing they're going to do. Tiger's going to play some, and Rory, and they've got this. I looked at one of the tournaments this year, and there were no players, no top 50 players in the tournament. I think it was the maybe the quad, the former Quad Cities tournament, whatever it's called now. And so, to me, the PGA Tour kind of, they've done some things in terms of not having top players play that open the way for this LIV thing a little bit. In fact, I think McIlroy said the other day that maybe there was just one tournament all year where all the top players played, and so they're playing a little bit of catch up. They're paying out more money and all this stuff. But again, I don't know. I mean, do you think LIV is going to get a major television contract? I mean, they don't have that right now.
If they keep getting good players, I mean, wouldn't that eventually occur? Because, I mean, people want to watch great players on television. So if they continue to get an influx of some of the better PGA Tour golfers, I would imagine that, some sort of television contract arrives, or does that risk these networks, risking their relationship with the PGA?
Yeah, another big question, too, I think, Phil, is what does Fred Ridley do about the Masters next year in terms of, one of the big, if you've won the Masters, that's always gotten you in the tournament after that. And guys like Sergio Garcia and Schwartzel and Dustin Johnson, some of the past winners, Patrick Reed, I mean, are they going to really squeeze those guys out? I mean, I have the feeling that somehow these LIV golfers are going to continue to be able to play in majors, at least until it gets through the courts. And if that's the case, then not only have they made all this money, but they still get to play the big tournaments. But to me, that's the intriguing question.
It's not like this is unprecedented. It's just, as far as I know, it's the first time that this has happened in golf, where a rival league has risen up and is offering legitimate money. I mean, big money to players. But I mean, if you look through the history of team sports, individual sports too, baseball has an antitrust exemption because of the Players League in like 1915 and 1916. That's how they're able to operate as a monopoly. The NFL has dealt with the AFL and the USFL. NHL had the World Hockey Association. I mean, the list goes on and on. The ABA and the NBA, everything. The only difference is where this is unprecedented is that none of those leagues, as much money as they might have had, they didn't have a sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia backing it up. I mean, it's like, I understand that the PGA has the weight of history behind it. I just don't know where they find the money to compete with one of the richest families on earth in the Saudi Arabian, ruling family.
Yeah, and the tone of some of these player quotes has changed to me. I mean, like Roy talked last week about being quite cordial with Cam Smith, who obviously that's a big deal. He's going with LIV Golf. In other words, they're not angry with the players; they're just kind of angry at the situation, I think. And thank goodness for the PGA Tour. Rory had a great week last week, and he's very popular. He's probably more popular than many American golfers on this tour. And I imagine a lot of people were rooting for him to win, even though Scheffler was the guy he was trying to beat last week.
Brandon texted I think a legit question here, asking about this, and just flat out, from what you know, are PGA players so underpaid, or is LIV just overpaying that much?
Yeah, I think it's more, to me, Phil, it's the guys who are 40 to 50 who understand that they're not going to be that competitive with the young guns of the PGA Tour. When you look more and more, it's even in amateur golf, you look at women's golf, the PGA guys in their 20s and 30s winning. And so guys like Sergio or Westwood or somebody, in their 40s, they're just looking at a way to make a lot of money in less time. Now, they are going to have to play 14 events next year. And if they win the court situation, then they'll be playing 15 more on the PGA Tour. And none of those guys want to really play that much, but that's where they are.
All right, let's close on a baseball thought here. Cardinals and Reds later today. So, I mean, you got to win these games. They get the schedule really set up for them, and it's lovely to see that with St. Louis getting a decent lead here over Milwaukee, and a little more than a month to go, and you're essentially playing just against the Pirates and and the Reds. I know you got the Dodgers and the Padres and the Brewers thrown in there too, but most of your games are against some pretty poor teams. I had seen, now I don't know how you feel about the statistic WAR, WAR, wins above replacement, but I do think it does mean something. I think Goldschmidt's your MVP easily. He leads the league in WAR. Nolan Arenado is second. Grant, you know who's fourth in the league in WAR is Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman, because of how good he is in the field. He's a decent enough hitter, but he's like a throwback, man. I could see Tommy Edman playing for Whitey Herzog's Cardinals in the 80s.
Well, you know, he's been playing shortstop the last few games because DeYoung's hitting 165, and Edmond got their only run last night with a home run. You know, the Cardinals' magic number is 28. I remember one time Harry Carey started doing this when it was 41 or something, when they were winning in the 60s, you know, and every day he would count the thing down. But, yeah, I think Goldschmidt has a 7-point lead over Freeman, and I think he's still tied with Alonso in RBIs, but now he's 3 behind Schwarber in home runs. So the Triple Crown is going to be tough. But I agree with you. If the vote was today, he'd be a landslide winner.
We'll leave it at that. Appreciate you, Grant. It's always fun talking this stuff with you. So looking forward to doing it again. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
All right. Should be fun this weekend. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Grant.
Grant Hall joining us here on Halftime. We're brought to you by WT Equipment. They've got 8 locations serving customers across Arkansas and North Louisiana. The newest location is in Searcy. WT is an authorized New Holland agriculture and construction equipment dealer. They offer equipment sales, service, and parts. WT Equipment is also your source when you need equipment to be ready for harvest or putting up hay. Or you might be in the market for a compact track loader or excavator, so go see WT Equipment in one of their 8 locations. And you can also go to WTEquip.com to see more. 877-377-6963 to get with us. And we'll come right back with more Halftime after a quick break.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.